to soul pieces. From soul pieces to soul pieces. From soul pieces to soul pieces. From soul pieces to soul pieces.
What's going on, people? How you guys doing? This is the next segment of personal struggles with mental health, and you got me, Marquis, you got Jesse, and my boy Corey. So today we're gonna go into the personal struggles of mental health with my boy Chancey, and he's gonna go ahead and uh take the flow from here. Go ahead, my brother.
Good evening, everyone. We are now in episode 3, I believe, fellas. Episode 3 of our of this podcast, and we thank everybody for joining. Whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching this broadcast after the fact, we welcome you and glad you took your time out to join us. So, as we deal with this mental health issue, I just want to share one of my personal experiences with this and what I did during that season of my life, uh, how I overcame it, how I still deal with it even today when life happens. So, in order for me to really unpack this, I got to give you a little bit of my history and how and walk you through this thing with me. So, uh, 24 years military, retired now, Army. Have 5 combat tours, combat deployments. I can't even tell you how many training missions that kept me away from my family over that time period. And when you're in the military, there's a certain lifestyle that we have. There's a certain lifestyle that the military affords us. I'll put it like that. That many people don't get to experience. Traveling all over the world. Having your kids in all these different types of countries. Them being, taught the languages of those countries while they're in school. And there's a lot of great opportunities in the military. I won't talk down about it. But there are a lot of challenges uh, to a couple that you have to endure that people don't talk about a lot. So because of all of the time that I was away, and some of this I didn't realize until after the fact, it caused a rift uh, in my marriage. Some that I didn't even recognize was a rift until almost too late. Uh, so because of the way the military is set up, when you're called away, it's not by choice. You don't volunteer for these things. You have to go. So all those times I deployed to Iraq and all those other countries I went to, uh, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't just say, hey, well, I think I'm gonna bow out of this one. I don't want to go. I didn't have that opportunity. So when you go, the spouse that's left behind has to pick up the pieces, pick up the duties, all responsibilities that you once had now becomes all in their lap, all in their plate. They take it on, they take it all on. So and no choice for them either, because this is what we signed up for, right? So house, the cars, the bills, the kids, school, church, sports, work, and everything in between all becomes their responsibility because you're absent. And when you're away uh, on mission, you need to focus on mission. You can't worry about what's going on at home and if mama paid the bills or if the kids made it to school or if they made it to practice and all. You have to focus on where you are and what you're doing. So uh, I was blessed to have a wife who was all over that, and I didn't have to worry about those things while I was away, which gave me uh, a level of peace that many can't understand. Because I didn't worry about Jody, somebody, you know, her stepping out. All I didn't have those issues, and thank God that He gave me the one that He gave me. So getting back to the mental health piece. So when I would return home from whether it was a combat deployment or whether it was a training mission or whatever, I would see things in the house running smooth, and I never assumed my rightful place back in leadership in my family. I allowed my wife to continue to wear my shoes in the house because I didn't want to disrupt the flow that she had established in the house. Um, Not even realizing the burden that she was carrying by serving in both roles or carrying more than what she should have been carrying. Um, she shouldn't have had to tell me, Chance, I need a break. Um, it's too much. It was my responsibility to see that and to lead and to take that responsibility back from her or some of that off of her and say, hey, babe, I'm home. I got it. And for a long time, I couldn't see that. Um, Not realizing that your spouse is a helpmeet, that they're a support to you, not to take all your stuff and carry it, but to support you as you both move forward. So to bring you up to speed, so my example uh, as I was coming up was watching my mom carry the load financially, um, but she was also the one calling the shots in the house. Uh, so I assumed that was the norm. Now my dad, he worked; they both worked, but dad bought home the bacon per se, his portion of it, and gave it to mom, and she did what she did. But mom ran the house. She called the shots of everything. Uh, so I just assumed that's how things were supposed to be. Um, you don't know what you don't know. But when you have a spouse who tells you what you need to know, you should listen. And many times my wife was speaking to me and telling me what she needed, and I wasn't listening. I was just looking at the results and looking at the fact that everything's running smooth. So don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It wasn't broke for me because for me it was easy because I would go do what I need to do. I come back home, everything's running good. So I didn't see the issues that she was seeing. I didn't see the weight and the burden that she was carrying because she made it look easy while suffering in silence. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me and how we got to this conversation, this mental health situation for me, is I'm currently in Virginia, and we left Georgia for Virginia in 2011, coming up here for me to finish my military time at the Pentagon. I did my last 5 years in the Army at the Pentagon here in DC. So when we got to Virginia from Georgia, I arrived here in May. The family didn't come up until that summer because the boys were still in school. So when the family got here in the summer, I immediately noticed a difference in my marriage. Very, very obvious. And it was simply based on my wife's response to me. When something, just like they call it women's intuition, when something is off. And I immediately noticed something was off. I was like, okay, babe, what's going on here? What's the deal? And she quickly reminded me that this was nothing new. I was telling you back in Georgia that things weren't right, but you weren't listening to me because I was so busy. See, in Georgia, I was the associate pastor. I was leading the prison ministry. I was an active member with the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts, which both of my boys are in. I was teaching Bible study. I was teaching Sunday school. I was, going to my son's practices and games. And oh, by the way, I was still in the military. So had all of those duties. So I was very busy. And so here I am thinking that my wife was just like my number one cheerleader, like, go, babe, go, babe, go. She was my cheerleader. Never recognized and realized that she was feeling neglected. Didn't see that for myself. And I can say now that's part that hurt me the most is that I didn't see the fact that I was neglecting my wife while doing all these other great and wonderful things, helping other couples, counseling other couples, helping people in their own marriage. And here it is, mine is failing, quite frankly, and I didn't even notice it. So
how could you not have seen that? How could you not have seen that?
So what I call that is the spirit of busyness is what I call that. I was so busy doing all these things that were good things, helping people, doing good, making an impact. I mean, when I would go to the prison, the guys coming up, giving their lives to Christ. I mean, it was just crazy. So I was so caught up in the impact that I thought I was making on others that I wasn't recognizing the impact that I was having in my own home.
And what impact was that? What impact was you having in the home?
That I was neglecting my family because once he told me what I was doing or not doing, that's what led to all of this.
Okay, let's talk about neglect. How? Like, what were you not doing that you didn't feel the need to do?
Well, one of the things was now when we got to Georgia, that was in 2009. So I had just come off of a 15-month deployment to Iraq when we were stationed in Germany. So we were stationed in Germany for 3 years. Of those 3 years, I was deployed for 15 months. So half the time we were in Germany, I was gone. So here it is, my family is in Germany, a foreign country, by themselves. I'm gone away to another foreign country. They've got no family support because all our family's back in the States, so no family support. My wife was in school, she was working, and both of the kids were in school. So that was a lot on her. Plus, she was taking care of everything at the house: bills, kids, school, her in school, her job, and holding everything else down for the family. So when I came back from Iraq that time, I got back on Christmas Day of 2008. We left Germany to go to Georgia in May of 2009. So a few months later, we were back in Georgia. We get to Georgia, and I immediately, join the church, and I get busy. So here it is. I've been gone 15 months, never established myself back in the home, and take some of those roles and responsibilities off my wife and give her a break. And we get to Georgia, and now I may not be gone physically, but I'm still gone because I'm not there to offer my help, my leadership, my take on my role back in the home. So in essence, she still feel like it to her, it's like I'm still gone because I haven't relieved her of any of those burdens or even of any of those responsibilities, even though I'm physically in the house. Make sense? So that's where the neglect comes from her perspective. And now this is after we've, worked through some of this stuff now. So here we are in Virginia with her feeling that way, having been in Georgia now 2 years, because we got there in 2009. We got here to Virginia in 2011. So for 2 years, plus the 15 months I was gone, 3.5 years now, she's felt that she's had to carry that responsibility of running everything, managing everything, carrying everything. All right, here we are. So we get here to Virginia, and here I am faced with that. What do you mean you feel neglected? I've been doing blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but you haven't been doing this. So we separate for a year. Moved in separate apartments. Boys are separated. They would visit back and forth.
So real quick, separation came because she felt that she was in a marriage, but she was alone, doing it all herself anyway. And so instead
Yes,
of me doing it all myself, being with you, I might as well be by myself,
might as well be by
um,
myself.
officially anyway to do it. Since you ain't doing it anyway, you worry about
Right.
everybody else, but you ain't worried about what's going on here.
Absolutely. And when she came to me with
Gotcha.
that, I was like, no, ma'am. I said, hey, we've been together. It was almost 20 years at that point. I said, no, ma'am. Matter of fact, we've been together since 1989, which is now 31 years. But at that time, we was married almost 20. So I was like, no, ma'am. I said, all we've been through, we can work this out. This ain't nothing we can't overcome. And she was like, sir, um, you must not understand. So I'm not asking, what you want to do. This is what we doing. Because I guess for her, she needed me to see. That was only for me to see how significant this had become for her, and how much neglect had taken place, and I couldn't see it until that time. So when we were separated, I was totally against it. I was like, no, ma'am, I was not for it at all. But we did it because I felt like I have no choice at that moment in my life. So we went with separation, and I can now tell you that was the best thing that ever happened to me in my marriage. That separation, and it's so ironic because the first time I deployed in 2003, when I came back from that deployment, I preached my first sermon, and the first sermon that I preached was this: sometimes separation has to take place for a connection to be made. And I didn't quite understand why he gave me that to preach as my first sermon. But it makes so much sense now because I really understand what that means. And so doing this separation that we had, now mind you, there was no infidelity or any of that stuff that led up to this, none of that. it was just what I told you it was. So during this separation, um, like I said, I've been deployed 5 times, and neither of those deployments could compare to what I went through during this separation. The depression, the suicidal thoughts, the loneliness, the just the myriad of emotions that I went through. Not wanting to not getting up sometimes out of bed all day, not eating, because I knew that this was my wife. There was no question in my mind that that was my wife. And so I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to bring restoration for my marriage. So, but during this time we were separated in the beginning, because I'm messed up in the head. I'm stressing out. I'm going crazy. I'm like, hey, every week seemed like I'm calling her, texting, hey, what we doing? What we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? She's like, babe, it ain't. It's only been 2 weeks. It's only been a month. Like, what you mean? So I began to, just pray, like, God, what do I do? What you got to help me. What do I do? So throughout this entire year that we were separated, it was only a year, but throughout that entire year, all God would say to me was, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it. That's all he would say to me throughout that whole time concerning my marriage, to the point where I got frustrated with God. I'm like, okay, God, I done preached that. I done heard it preached. I done taught it, all of that. What in the hell does that mean for me right here, right now, in this season of my life? I need some answers. You got to help me. And what he showed me in that was, he said, Chancey, when you were obedient, I loved you. When you were disobedient, I loved you. When you go your own way, I love you. When you go my way, I love you. Basically, in every season of your life, no matter what happens, no matter what you've done, no matter what you do, I've never stopped loving you and never will. He said, that's how I need you to love that woman. And when he broke it down to me like that, I began to see things differently. Now, mind you, this is months into this now. So you can imagine the days getting to that point, not wanting to get out of bed, not eating, depressed, not even answering the phone calls when my accountability partners would call me, checking in on me. Just didn't want to have nothing to do with nobody. And during that time, my youngest son, Zachary, he was, I want to say he was in 2011, 12. He was in, Zach was in either middle school or elementary, either in his final years of elementary or middle school. It was Zachary who helped me through some of those rough times, because Zachary, like me, he loved to cook. Zach would come to the house and he'll get me fired up about cooking. We'll be in the kitchen, man, cooking up stuff, and I have a big fish tank, and we like, Dad, let's go to the pet store, let's get some more fish, and we go get the fish and go get. He kept me from going down that rabbit hole of depression a lot of days. Now, some days he weren't there, and it was rough, but my son helped keep me, a lot of days from going down that hole. But it was
When
a
you
rough
went,
time.
when you went down that hole, what did that day look like? When Zachary didn't call you, what did the day look like and feel like to you in that space?
In those times when it was just me, um, during those times, that's when the depression set in, when I wouldn't get out of bed, when I wouldn't answer the phone, when I wouldn't eat. I wake up, I get out the bed, sometimes it's already 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. It's my first time getting out of bed all day long. Those that's what that looked like. Finding I'm a fisherman. That's what gives me joy as far as a hobby is concerned. uh I went months without even going to get my boat, without even getting on the water, without even putting a line in the water. And I can fish every day. You know, sometimes not even going to work, calling in, you know, or calling out, not able to go to work. You know, there were some days I would get to work, and when I pulled into the parking lot at the Pentagon, it's like I would wake up then and be like, how did I get here? Like the entire trip from Fort Belvoir to the Pentagon, which is about a 35-minute drive in the DC traffic, and I would just in wonder be like, how did I get here? Because it would just be a blur. That's what those days looked like when it was
So
that bad.
it sound like you was just existing, like you was on co-pilot.
Absolutely.
Your body knew what to do and where to be, but your mind wasn't there.
Totally existing. No doubt about it. And what I had to do, you know, in that moment is that's when I had my C moment is what I call it. And SEE, a significant emotional event, which caused me to really look in the mirror, do the self-assessment, do my work, and realize where I had fallen short and what I needed to do to make the adjustments to get out of that situation, to get out of that place. But even in the midst of that, having to accept the fact that the ball was really in her court. And now because of my actions, I'm now subject to to deal with the consequences of what she decides to do. Whether that is take me back or say, you know what, I'm good. I think we should go our separate ways. And that was a decision that I had no bearing on. And that I think was the hardest part of it for me in the sense that I had no say in it. All I could do is do what I knew to do was right to work on me and leave the rest of what her decision was in God's hands because I had no say. I had no say. I couldn't, you know, I wasn't calling her or texting her saying, hey, you know, I'm praying, you know, hey, I'm doing my work. Hey, I'm a better man. Hey, all I could do is do what I knew to do was right and hope that she could see that work that I was doing and say, you know what, he's got it, you know, and I wanna continue to do this. So that's what it was. So now
So
in the midst of that,
where did
go ahead.
where did the suicide? Because I know you say you never thought about suicide before, but in this space you actually thought about it.
Oh
What
yeah.
entertained the thought of suicide with all this responsibility? You felt that you just felt your whole family. So what your purpose is now? What was the thought behind suicide?
So the suicidal thoughts come when you feel like you have nothing to offer. You get in a place sometimes where when especially when the situation I was in where she's doing all this by herself, she's doing it all on her own, you know, she feels like she's doing it all on her own anyway. So what's the point of me being here? You know, she don't need me. She can do it by herself, you know. The boy's good, she's good. What do I need to be here for? You know, and that stuff play in your head and you know, but man, when you in the middle of that, it's it's hard to explain it, but I will say that when you're in that space, man, you almost feel like that is your only that's the only way out. As much as we know that it's not, you it's when you're in that space, it's 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 hard to shake it. I don't know how to explain it really in words, but it's just a dark place to be,
So
man.
so you saying you was in a place of hopelessness and you was feeling so much pain. The only way to escape that pain was just to go ahead and make that decision and just end it all. Is that's what you're saying?
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. You feel like you have no option, no other options, because you just want to stop. So I can truly relate to that brother that we played that video who shot his baby's mom and told the cops to come get his kid, because in his mind he felt like he had no other alternative. Now, granted, I definitely disagree with taking somebody else's life, but I definitely can understand how you would get to a place where you feel as though your best option is not to be here. I get that.
Wait, so you telling me a man of God can think like this? Someone that
Of course,
preached the
man.
word? You telling me
Absolutely.
that because you follow Christ, you know, you telling me you can be in a place like that?
Yeah, and
When Christ
exactly,
is supposed to be the one to give you hope, right?
right. But in that same breath, think about this now. I was still the same guy who was offering hope to everybody else while my marriage was failing. So it's that same thing. Where we want the results, but you gotta be willing to do the work required. And when you're in a position where now you're responsible for giving others hope and speaking life to other people, those same words of life that you speak, you got to first eat them first. You got to eat them first, because the word tells us charity begins at home and then spreads abroad. And that became very true to me during this season of my life, because what I realized in that charity, meaning love, um, begins at home. So home is where you nurture this charity, is where you develop it, you nurture it, and you perfect it. And once you establish that in your home, then and only then can it branch out and be a blessing and benefit to other people without destroying or causing isms and schisms and conflict in yours. Because if you're taking care of home, when you go out to do the spread abroad, home is taken care of. So there's not going to be no feelings of neglect and feelings of loneliness and all that stuff, because you've taken care of home. And when home is taken care of, then you can branch out without it causing issue here in the home. That's why he said that.
But
So I wanted.
the thing, the thing, the thing about it though, what you gotta understand is you were blindsided because you thought home was being taken care of.
I
You
did.
understand what I'm saying?
I did.
In your mind, you
And
like,
that's why
oh man,
communication is so important.
right.
Yeah.
And
True.
so your
True.
purpose was that, and so being that you knew that was taken care of, home didn't need you no more. So you use your purpose to to bring forth hope outside of the home. Cause you needed somewhere to channel that energy because your home in your from your perspective, you didn't want to destroy the piece of it because you had already built the foundation and hope within that circle. So when you came back and you saw that she was so independent and everything's running so smoothly, she didn't need you. You had to find another avenue to exert that energy.
That's
And
how I
so
felt,
when
but
she
that
came,
that was wrong.
right, right. But when she came back to you and told you, hold on now, this ain't it, bro. I'm struggling right now. You think I'm holding it down, but I'm struggling. I need you to stop everything you doing outside of this house right now. And when she told you
Right.
that, that's when you broke and you
Yep.
realize you know what I'm saying, that energy was going in the wrong place. And then when that purpose was taken away from you, then you felt like you was helpless. Um you felt like you was useless for the most part. And so the thought of suicide would enter in at that moment because you're not needed.
Yeah. You did.
So
Corey, you
what
got something to
was
say?
it, was it a situation to where the situation itself destabilized you, and when you thought that you were walking a certain line and you had everything in order, and when she left, you had no control. So I want you to express to some of those people that go through different situations, like those people that are lonely, that may not have an accountability partner, express how long a minute or 5 minutes is to someone in that type of situation. It can feel like a lifetime. So can you just kind of explain like those thoughts that do enter your head when you kind of feel hopeless, like you're counting the question marks in life, like this, that, why am I here? Who cares about me? What's my purpose? And those things that kind of get you off keel. Can you kind of explain to some people that dark time and exactly how long a day can actually be? You said one statement, your wife said it's only been 2 weeks, but a man that's typically in control of his situation, can you just explain to the viewers how long a minute or 5 minutes can be to someone in that situation to make them come up with those thoughts of suicide?
Man, it feels like forever. Like I said, when those days when I would get up at 6, 7 in the evening, it didn't feel like I had been in bed all day at all. It didn't seem like that long, and the many times I didn't even know it was that long. But I noticed that the I can tell that it was dark outside through the blinds. I was like, what? But yeah, it can definitely feel like forever when you're in that space. And that's why it's so important to have those accountability partners and have people that you can lean on, that you can draw from, that helps you come out of that. Because there's many days that and Marquise can tell you, because he was one of my accountability partners. Many days he would call me, and man, I would just be a hot mess, man, and he would pull me out of that pit of despair. And had it not for been for brothers like him, it really was him and one other brother, really. And then my pastors would call me too, who knew I was going through that, and they would encourage me and try to keep me from going down that hole. But it's so important to have a support system in your life, man, to help you keep from going down that hole. But now, in the midst of this, we were going to counseling. We sought counseling both in the church and out of the church, and they both helped at at different levels. They helped. So I would encourage counseling on both sides, because they offer something different, but they're both helpful. So I would definitely encourage that. And then what we also did was we did couples counseling and we did individual counseling, because what I noticed in the couples counseling is that we would get to a certain spot, and it was like it would stop. Like we couldn't go any, we couldn't push beyond that point. And what we found was, in the individual counseling, that allowed us to push past those places in the couples counseling that we had come to barriers on, and we were to push through the barriers and then come back together to be better for one another. So I definitely encourage folks to seek out counseling, because there's nothing like having an unbiased party in the room that can hear both sides and give it to you straight raw. And that's how you need to hear it. And sometimes when you've been in a relationship as long as we had been, you get complacent and you can't see the forest for the trees, because you just embedded too deep. So you need somebody to pull you back, and so you can look at things with a different perspective, and be able to work through it. So I definitely encourage counseling to those who may be in that space in their own marriage.
Man, that I appreciate you sharing that, bro, and being vulnerable with us. That's great. I really enjoyed the conversation. Corey, do you have anything that you want to say in reference to what you heard and what was shared tonight?
Yeah, we're all military men, and you have people that go to the gym. You have manly men that are in the cars. You do manly stuff, work with their hands. Brick masons. You have all these different type of people, but none of those things, help actually the inner man. That inner man that sometimes feel like he's walking by himself, or that inner man that sometimes feels like no one sees me and my efforts, or people just don't understand what I'm trying to do. Like that's what I feel like when people start having those hangups and they get in these dark spaces, they don't have those accountability partners, that because sometimes that stuff is just carnal, it's in the mind, and it's in a place to where you actually can rock out of it. You know, the enemy, he wants to play these tricks with you. So you have to make sure that you're establishing um, a base of people that can actually give it to you truthfully. Like, look, you're in this situation, you messed up, man. Or you know, maybe you can just true accountability partners. And I know it means something similar. I isolated myself from my spouse and her family and from my family, and I felt like I was fighting a fight by myself. So a lot of these tricks that we're playing, I was actually playing some of these tricks with myself because I isolated myself. I wasn't opening up to anybody. And then you will find yourself in a dark space if you're not opening up to anybody and you're pushing away from people. And then you wonder why, you know, you're going through things and you feel like you're going through them by yourself. So good word, Chancey. I can see the strength, and I'm glad you guys were able to go through that storm, and you kept pushing through to come on the other side. You know, resilient. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I will say too, man, that it takes two willing parties for this to work. It takes two willing parties that wants to be reconciled, that wants to be healed, and that wants to be restored. You cannot do this by yourself. You can't have one party with their foot in and one party with their foot out the door, because it won't work, because we're human at the end of the day. And if you're the only one that's giving, then eventually you're going to give out. So I will say that it is very important that you have two willing parties that want the same thing. You have to be striving to the same goal or in the same objective, or it's not going to work.
Before we go into questions, real quick, you're referring to people that are in relationships. What about singles? Them that's going through that, you know what I'm saying, that's dealing with those same thought patterns, thoughts of suicide and all that, because they don't haven't found the right partner yet, because things in life is not going the way they think it should go. You know, it's more. There are more dynamics to life than just relationships themselves that cause us to spiral down into those those dark holes and those dark places. So, real quick, what would you recommend, or what would you say to encourage those people?
I go back. I go back to counseling too, man. I mean, because it works regardless whether you're married or single. We have to do a better job at doing our work as individuals. Because look at it like this: even if you are single, you're looking to be married, or you're just single, you're dating, whatever the case may be. Look, I'm no benefit to you if I'm not being the best version of myself that I can be. So first, I got to work on me. I got to make sure that I'm good, because I'm no good to you if I'm not. So self-care is the best care, because I'm only going to be as good to you as I am to myself. So I think singles need to look at that in people that they are dating, or even if you're just single person. What are you doing to work on you? What are you doing to improve yourself? I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, what was it? You look at the confidence we have in taking our vehicle to the mechanic. You have all the trust and confidence in the world that when I go back and pick my vehicle up, it's going to be running tip top shape, because I trust that they're going to fix what's wrong with my vehicle, and you're paying for that. So why don't we have the same thought process and approach when it comes to ourselves and taking care of ourselves?
I think it comes to the word identity. I think if you have a single, they're searching for something. And I think ultimately, in singles and in relationships, I feel like a person's identity, and it piggybacks on what you said, Chancey, about self-care. Well, what are you gonna take care of? What's self-care if you don't have the identity? So I feel like
Yeah.
when people actually can work on and know who they are, know what they can deposit into this earth, and know what they can and will not put up with and deal with, and I feel like the identity itself will help. A lot of people that go through dark times, they can relate on, or they can rely on my identity. Well, this is who I am, and this is a goodness in me, and then I know I can contribute these things to the earth, or to a
Yeah.
person, or to a situation.
Yeah. And it was
That's
my relationship
exactly
with. with God, man. That brought me through ultimately.
That's
When you
exactly
talk about that
core.
identity.
That was exactly what I was thinking about core as far as purpose as an individual. Understand the why you're here and that you have value and you bring value, to those around you. And God created us, or whoever we believe Allah created us to, bring forth value within the earth to those around us. So that's what's most important. You have to build yourself to be the best version of you. Uh, with that being said, Miss Ingram, do we have any questions?
Yes, sir. Let me see if I can get back to the top. I'm going to try to put them on the screen. So for the panelists and our viewers, please bear with me if it doesn't pop up on the screen. I want the gentleman to be able to read.
All right.
Let's see.
Oh boy.
Are you able to see that, Mr. Chauncey?
Ooh wee. Let me see. So when she first brought up her feelings, how did it make you feel? And what actions did you take at that time? And why do you think it didn't work at first? Or was it that you just wasn't listening? Yeah. So when she, and that's the thing, when she would tell me how she was feeling, because I couldn't see that myself, I didn't take it to be, I don't think I took it serious enough, because I didn't see it affecting her in a negative way. I didn't see how it was affecting her, because my wife is a natural introvert, so she keeps things inside anyway. So you wouldn't know when something was wrong because she don't show it, So because I didn't see the manifestation of her feelings in her actions, I couldn't tell. I guess I didn't believe that it was as bad as she was saying it was. And then you're right, I wasn't listening. I said I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening. I was
Okay.
hearing her, but I wasn't listening.
So how did it make you feel was the first portion of it?
Well, I felt like you said earlier, I felt like I was doing all I was supposed to be doing. And I, what you mean? That's why I couldn't, it didn't register with me, because I knew what I was doing. So in my mind, like, hey man, I'm a good dude, man. I'm providing my family. I'm there. I'm present. Blah 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 blah. So what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? So I kind of took
So
offense to it at first.
so you took offense to it, and then you that caused you not to take any action at that time because you couldn't understand.
Right.
Um, which is the reason why it didn't work the first time. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, she had been telling me periodically while we were in Georgia about this stuff, and I was like, you know, because I couldn't understand it, I couldn't tell, I couldn't see it. I didn't take action, and then it didn't get real to me until she came to Virginia. That's when it got real to me, because
Right.
at that point she was so frustrated. At that point, I began to see it in her actions, what she had
Right.
been telling me in Georgia.
So all right, okay. So if you didn't Miss Little, if he didn't answer your question in its entirety, go back into the comments and let's have that discussion later because we just got to move on to the next question. But we're not ignoring you. We just let us know if we answer the question. If not, we'll continue this after the podcast. What's the next question, Miss Ingram?
Okay, I'm moving on to the next one, and I think this one may have been addressed. Nevertheless, here it is. Are you able to see that, Mr. Chauncey?
How did I feel being in that? What's that last? Oh, yeah. I don't wish that on anybody. Uh, and that's just the thing. People always assume that because you're a Christian, or because you know the Lord, got a relationship with the Lord, that you don't go through life, and that's just untrue. What separates us is that because of our relationship, we have hope. Uh, and it's what I tell people when I go to funerals. I say we don't grieve as those who have no hope. We have hope. My hope is in Him, and I knew that. But when you're in that hole, you got to keep reminding yourself of that hope. You got to keep reminding yourself of who you are, not just as a man, but who you are in Him, and remind yourself of your purpose, and remind yourself of who am I without her. You know, what would I be doing if she wasn't in my life? And it was things like that that I had to keep, you know, saying and repeating and all that stuff to not stay in that hole. It's one thing to go in the hole. It's a whole nother situation to stay in the hole. And I think that's another thing that separates us is people stay there too long sometimes, and that's what causes, you know, people to commit suicide and do things to themselves and all the other stuff or to other people because they don't know how to come out.
Right. And some many Christians, strong believers, have made that decision to go ahead and commit suicide as well. Um,
Absolutely.
Also, there were prophets in the Bible that dealt with severe depressions and
Mm-hmm.
suicidal thoughts as well. Moving on to the next question, Miss Ingram.
Yes, sir. Are you able to see that one?
What was your role as a man? Was your role? I wouldn't say it was challenged because my wife never made me feel less of a man, or she didn't make me feel like you know, less than, or that I wasn't. It only came out when we were going through the separation, when she finally revealed to me how it made her feel, in the sense that um I didn't marry you to play my role and yours. You know,
Mhm.
you're the husband, you're the man, you're the one who's supposed to, you know, this is your role, and that's, I don't want your role. I don't want to serve in your role. I want to be the wife. I want to be the. I don't want to do that. You know, and because I wasn't doing my part, she had to do more than what she signed up for, even though I was present. So that's when all of that came out, and it just made me feel even worse because I'm like, man, like I say, my biggest thing was that I couldn't see um, that because things were running, you know, so well. I thought.
Hey, this the thought on that question though. How was your role not challenged when you realized that you weren't in your role?
Well,
You see
that
what
it
I'm
wasn't
saying?
her. Right. I get it, but that
Right.
was my own
I'm not
realization.
right. Now I'm not saying she challenged you, but you begin to challenge yourself once it was identified you in your
Oh
role.
man. Oh man, yeah, big time.
You see what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir.
So your
Yep.
role was actually challenged as a man. Cause you
Yep,
had
it
to
was.
start to rediscover, okay, oh man.
Yep,
Moving
absolutely.
on to the next question. We can go in the comments. Make sure Corey and Chance, make sure you go in the comments afterwards throughout the week and dialogue with some of these questions. Next question. Go ahead, Chance.
Okay, golly. When were you ever in denial in regards to your responsibilities? How long did it take you to realize that you had on that space of neglect? Oh, so
I think you answered the first question already
yeah, I
from an
think I
earlier
did
question.
too. Um, how long did it take me to realize that you neglect? I didn't realize how bad the neglect was until we were separated and I was alone and I was faced with myself and having to go back and relive those moments and those years and go back and look over my life previous to try to find where I was neglectful in my marriage. So that came during the separation when I was kind of doing that self-assessment and examining myself. That's when that happened.
Ooh, that's good.
One last question, Miss Ingram. One last
Yes.
question.
Okay. Here's one.
Were there any communication barriers? Yeah, there was some communication barriers because she is an introvert and my wife doesn't talk. She Most women, y'all think you don't speak fast. And my wife, I'm a communicator. I'm a talker. So when we get in some heated, what I call heated fellowship, I'm ready to work it out. Let's talk through it. Let's come on. And she'll sit there and won't say nothing, and that drives me bonkers. And we had a lot of that stuff even in the counseling sessions. We would get to, like I said, we would get to places in the session, and we couldn't move any further because she shut down. And once she get frustrated or upset or angry or to the point where she's fixing to cry, she stops. She shuts down completely, and the session over because she done. So and what helped us there were the individual counseling sessions as well. So that helped her push through that phase as well, and helped me kind of understand how to deal with, people when they get to that point in the conversation and they can't go any further. So it was a lot of learning and understanding that went on during that time. So yeah, there were communication barriers. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Corey, you have anything that you want to add to anything?
No, I'm good. Chancey, he did a good job of covering everything. Biggest part was just got to remain vigilant with yourself and the things around you. The move, he's just got to kind of just be vigilant. But he did a good job of covering everything. Good job, Chance.
Thank you all for tuning in. Just look at, if you're having issues and you're in a depressed state, we have numbers down in the banner in which you can contact, and we also have a website as well. Could you put that on there for us, Miss Ingram, if you don't mind? It was
It's
it was scrolling across the screen
let me see.
during the whole segment for the most part, and hopefully some of you guys wrote it down. There we go, right there.
Okay.
That's one of them. And
And is it
then it was, say again, and there you go, the suicide number. Just know and understand that you have purpose, and there's always hope. You're not in this alone. Trust me, someone is going through something identical as you are. You were created for purpose. So please, if you're thinking about taking your life, other people are depending on you. You are impacting other people's lives around you, even if you don't even know that at this moment in time in your life. There's the 1-800 number right there. Please call. Or if you want to have a conversation, just hit us up on within the comments, and we will dialogue with you guys. With that being said, Miss Ingram, do you have anything before we go out in prayer? And fellas, am I missing anything?
No, just don't feel. If you need to talk, just reach out to us, and we'll definitely get with you if we're available. But just don't keep it in and self exploding.
And I'm gonna say this last thing about purpose. So even in the midst of that year separation that I was going through, in the midst of the depression and the suicidal thoughts and all of that, I was still being used in my purpose, because in the midst of that, couples were still coming to me for counseling for them, even in the midst of what I was going through, and I was impacting. So listen, man, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. You are not alone. You're not going through. We don't go through life alone. No life experience is unique to you. Somebody before you, while you're going through it, and even after you get out of it, is gonna be in that same place. So be encouraged to know that.
For sure. What he said and what the song we used to sing. What was it? You are not alone. Okay, that's it. That's it. Also, next week, just so you guys know, next week we got 30 seconds. Next week, I'm going to try to have a mental health expert on here. There are different types of mental health. I know people that are dealing with schizophrenia, severe depression, and bipolar
Disorder.
issues or whatever. So bipolar disorder. So we're gonna cover those as well. Just know that normal people go through depression and think about suicide because of the pressures of life. God, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you for this opportunity. Bless the hearers. Bless all of them that may be dealing with and thinking about suicide. We ask you right now to just provide hope, touch their hearts and their minds, God. Allow the message and our experience to just give them hope, God. Allow those numbers and resources that was given to them, allow them to use them so that they can contact someone, Lord, and be spoken to, God, to help bring them out of their situation, giving them a different perspective. We just thank you for who you are. We thank you just for bringing those people out that were in prior to even listening to this, and even those that haven't listened to this, that you brought someone into their life to encourage them, you know what I'm saying, to give them a different perspective, to not even think about suicide or allowing them to come out of the dark hole that they may have been. We thank you and we praise you for who you are. We praise you just for your grace and your mercy that continuously sustains us each and every day. And we'll forever give you all the praise and glory. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Good night.
Be blessed.
Everybody.